Okay, hello everybody, welcome back. Now, this video is to talk about really CB versus ham radio. Which is best for you, which do you prefer, which is best for me. There's no right or wrong, you prefer what you prefer because you prefer it. But I do both, and I was sitting here with my licensed radios, my ham radios, and I actually realised I actually speak more on my CB to my friend than I do talking on the ham bands. So this is what kind of brought this video into my mind, really, to speak about this. So yeah, here it is. Okay, so you got CB, which in my opinion is kind of best for short range communications. Personally, I feel that can be anywhere from 1 mile up to 8 or 10 miles. Obviously, it all depends on your location, how built up your area is. You know, if you've got loads of houses all around you, and and you can't get your antenna very high up, you're going to have problems reaching out, basically. But no, it all depends on your location, how built up you are, how well your antenna is tuned, and where your antenna is located. If it's on top of your house, peeking over the top of your house, and it's also peeking over the top of all your neighbours' houses, you're kind of in a win-win situation, really. And also depends on your QRM, which interference, which you'd be surprised, you do pick up quite a lot on CB, bit of interference, just electrical noise from surrounding homes. Even the neighbours, you pick up noise from your neighbours. If they've got solar panels on their roof, sometimes you can pick up a lot of noise from them. It's actually really quite hard to to have quite less interfering levels on CB. But yeah, I just think CB is kind of great for those that are wanting a simple two-way communication with friends or family or things like that. It's you don't have to deal with things like needing a license. And I also personally feel CB is a lot more simplified than ham bands. CB, you got 40 channels FM, easy. Yeah, I know. Technically, there are more channels. You've got UK 40, EU SEPT, AM, FM, and sideband 2. We're allowed sideband now as well. In the UK, that's now legal, which it wasn't for quite a number of years. But for the purpose of this video now, as for the purpose of CBers and people coming into the hobby, you've got 40 channels. UK 40 FM, there it is. Every CB radio's got it. It's simple and it works. As for cost, it's actually relatively cheap to get into CB, honestly. You don't have to have £200 radios like this and expensive stereo antennas and things like that to get into CB. It's actually there's cheap ways into it, very cheap ways into it. You could pick up a basic FM, AM, FM 40 channel radio for second hand, probably about £20 off Facebook Marketplace, eBay, and whatever. The same as antennas too. I mean, I paid £20 for my silver rod. I've got a 5/8 wave Moonraker silver rod. I paid £20 for that off my friend. He's the one who got me into the hobby, into the radio hobby. I started off on CB, and he lent me a basic 4-watt radio, and he lent me the antenna just to get me going. And in the end, he just let me. He said I can have both the radio and the antenna, but I didn't want to be cheeky, So I said, no, if you want to sell me them, I'll happily buy them off you, but I don't want to take them for free. And he said, just give me £20. So I did. So technically, I got into the CB hobby for £20. I know not everybody's that lucky, but there are cheap ways into it. You don't have to spend ridiculous amount of money to get into it. And you know, starting off on a little tiny mobile 40 channel radio kind of brings me into the next point as well. Like, it's more, the simple rigs are more plug and play, if you know what I mean. You can get a bit more technical, you know, if you get a sideband rig radio, you know, rig radio. If you get a sideband radio, there could be a little bit more technical, you know, aspects to them with the upper and lower sideband and what have you. And but yeah, that can be quite technical sometimes for the beginner to learn. And I genuinely find most radio beginners do start on CB simply because it's license free. So yeah, that's just the way I find it. But no, it doesn't have to be expensive at all. It really doesn't. I actually bought this radio second hand as well. I actually paid £110, I think I did, from Moonraker website second hand. It was like 2 weeks old, from brand new. It's still boxed. It still had all its paperwork. It's still in its bag. I think the person bought it and never used it, sort of thing. So they sold it to Moonraker and I bought it. I haven't got much money invested in this hobby, to be honest with you. I don't spend an absolute fortune on radios. If I come across them cheap, I'll buy them. But no, CB as well, especially CB, it doesn't cost much at all to get into. The next positive of CB is propagation, or as the CBers call it, skip. This can significantly add communication range, and if you don't know what it is, one day you could be flicking through your channels and you hear nothing but background static, and then the next day you'll be hearing Americans, Italians, Spanish people, you know, from all over different countries. That is propagation, skip. It's where your radio signal bounces off. Basically, in very simple terms, your radio signal bounces off the sky and goes further. Let's just keep it simple here. But yeah, and propagation is actually quite common on 27 megahertz CB, which is, you know, 27 megahertz. That's what CB is. It's quite common, you know, especially in the warmer months as well. You come across it so much. In the warmer months, 5-6 days out of 7, you can have good propagation, good skip, and get some real long distance contacts. I did. I got my first ever DX contact, which DX means like long distance, was 3,275 miles away, to a gentleman in Massachusetts, America. Propagation can greatly add range, and it's very common to come across propagation as well. So yeah, there's that part of it. Again, that's a really good part of it, I guess. And for me personally, it may not bother many people, but it does me. With CB being license free, there's no annoying call signs you have to keep saying. There's don't get me wrong, I know my call sign very well now, Mike 7 Sierra X Tango, and I have no problem saying it. But still, if I don't have to say it, I'd rather not, you know. Like on CB, I talk to my friend, you just talk. But anyway, this leads me on to the negatives of CB, honestly. There is obviously positive and negative in everything. First negative, I think, personally, is antenna is generally a lot longer than most other antennas for different frequencies, different bands, you know, which can be a bloody eyesore. It really can. I mean, silver rods, I've got a silver rod 25 feet up in the air. And silver rod antennas are about just over 5 meters long, just the antenna. So if I've got, you know, 25 feet mast, and then I've got my 5 meter long antenna on top of that, you can imagine how high my antenna is. You can see it across. If you walk across the other end of my village, you can see my antenna. It sticks up above everything. So they can be a bit of an eyesore. Yeah, I get it. I do get it. You don't have to go that route, but genuinely, people go for silver rods because they're so cheap and easy to come by, and they are very good. They work. I got that real long distance, that 3,275 mile DX on my silver rod. So they do work. They're simple, but they work, and you can pick them up dirt cheap. They're just a freaking eyesore in my opinion. But it is what it is. The next negative for me is the 4 watt power limit. Yeah, okay, you get 12 watts on side band, but again, for simplicity's sake here, the new beginner learning the ropes of CB, FM, 4 watts. Again, yeah, you get a lot of propagation and skip to help out with that, but still, 4 watts can be very limiting. I mean, yeah, you can still get out pretty well on 4 watts if your antenna's, you've got a good location for your antenna and things like that. But generally speaking, 4 watts is quite limiting. But there you go. What can you do? That's the laws. That's the laws around it, I'm afraid. I also find it strange that not many people occupy the CB band anymore. Some may say it's dead. CB's dead, and you do hear that quite often. Honestly, it's not dead. It's just not a massive thing anymore, like it was in the early 80s. So finding people to talk to can be quite difficult, especially with your 4 watt power output. But it's not dead. Around my location, it is quite dead. I only have my friend that I talk to on there. Some early mornings I hear there's some of the tractor guys just driving down the roads doing their jobs, and they're chatting to each other on the CB and what have you. When they come past through my village, I hear them and sometimes have a little chat with them. But generally speaking, on FM it is pretty dead in my location. But yeah, luckily I get really good propagation and skip, and I can still make some real long distance contacts, which is good. But no, that's my opinions on CB. So okay, so ham, or amateur radio, or the licensed part of radio, the licensed bands, generally a lot longer range. Obviously due to just the fact that you're allowed more output power. If you're on your beginner radio license, which is called Foundation here in the UK, you're allowed 25 watts on most bands for output power, and also the fact that you can use radio repeaters and you can use satellites as well to extend the range of your communication even further. You can make some crazy long distance communications on it. My most common repeater is GB3PI. That's probably about 40-45 miles away from me or so, and I can get that absolutely fine. So it just goes to show, you'd never get that on a CB, that's for sure. But yeah, although like ham bands, require a license and CB is license free, it is strange that, to see more people on the licensed side of radio than what there is on CB. It's very strange. You would have thought the free option, would be more popular because anybody can operate it, You haven't got to have a license to do it, so you would have thought so, but that's not the case, honestly. It's honestly not the case. Very strange. With ham bands, or licensed radio, it's not particularly channel based. Like CB's got channel 1 to 40, it's a set frequency, you click between them channels. It's more of a full frequency block within that band, and you can scroll through each part of the frequency, which can be a little bit more tedious because there's more scrolling to do. If you want to find someone to talk to, a QSO. But there are common frequencies and obviously, you know, with repeaters and things like that as well. Again, that does greatly simplify it, but generally it's more frequency based than it is channels. But there you go, yeah. And also with licensed radio, ham radio, there's a lot more bands as well. I like to look at it as like I'm shopping at Tesco's. Hear me out. Each aisle, you look at the shopping store, right? You've got 10 aisles, just to say. You've got 10 aisles of different things, right? Each of them aisles is a band, just say a radio band, yeah? You know, you've got 10 meters band, you've got 11 meter band aisle, which is CB. You know, you've got 2 meter band, 70 centimeter band, 4 meter band, 6, blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Each band is a aisle of Tesco. And obviously 11 meter band is CB. The rest of the bands are ham bands and require a license, right? So if you're shopping in Tesco and you haven't got a license, you're limited to that one aisle only. You can only buy items that are down that aisle for the rest of your life. That's all you can do. Well, everybody else with licenses, it can go between each aisle that they want and buy other things. Do you know what I mean? It sounds very silly way to explain it, but that kind of worked when I was trying to explain to my partner why I need so many different radios and why, you know, they do different bands and what bands are, you know, because my partner don't have a clue. That did greatly help me trying to explain it to her. Every aisle is a band, you know, and you need a different radio for each band, blah blah blah. Yeah, get a license and you've got now access to a lot more of them aisles in shopping, you know, in the shopping centre in Tesco. I don't know why I use that as an explanation. I like to. But yeah, on top of that as well, with ham bands, the antenna can be significantly shorter, because generally in radio, the higher the frequency, like the higher the number of megahertz, the shorter the antenna can be. Hence why PMR 446 is obviously license free, but that's why it's got a small antenna, because it's 446 megahertz. It's quite high up there. It's in the ultra high frequency UHF band, you know, spectrum. So they can have a really, really short antenna because they're higher frequency. And obviously CB is quite a lot lower down there, you know. It's HF, you know, it's classed as HF, high frequency. You've got high frequency, very high frequency, and ultra high frequency. This is ultra high frequency. This is high frequency. You know, it's right down at the bottom, so you need a massive antenna. Again, with these licensed radio, higher frequency, the shorter your antenna can be, which is less of an eyesore, honestly. Yeah. I also find that on ham bands, setting up can be quite a lot easier as well, generally, because like I've got two antennas in here. I've got my silver rod and I've got my a GP6. They refer to it as a white stick. My white stick comes pre-tuned for the SWR, standing wave ratio. You cannot adjust it. It's tuned to that from factory and it's set up. It's all good to go. You put it up in the air, plug your feeder in, your coax wire, and you're basically good to go. With CB, you need to adjust the SWR. You need to extend and shorten the antenna and find a perfect, you know, measurement adjustment so that your SWR is as low as it can be on CB. Is generally, I mean, yeah, you do get SWR with ham bands, but I tend to find it less because most antennas do come pre-tuned from factory. So it does make setting up a heck of a lot easier as well. And plus, obviously, if you don't want to know don't want to know what it is and how to do it, or you know what it's for, just don't worry about it. Put your antenna in the air, job done. No, you always learn what SWR is, as you can seriously damage your radios. But no, on a serious note, ham bands as well, they're typically better audio quality as well. Yeah, That's all I can really think of for the positives. Okay, so that just leaves the negatives really of ham band. Obviously, you need a license. You don't need a license to listen. You can listen to anything you want on a radio, but you cannot transmit. You cannot push that magical button and talk without a license. Why? How do they know? Because you have a call sign. You have to give your call sign. If you don't give a call sign, most people just won't talk to you. So, yeah. And obviously, you need a license. This requires a fee. You have to pay money. You have to sit an exam, and blah 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 blah. That's the only negative to it. It's the whole exam, the nerves, the cost. I do find setup can be a lot more expensive on ham bands than it is on CB. Antennas alone are genuinely more pricier. I mean, like I said, I paid £20 for my silver rod for my CB. You can buy them brand new for £50. Whereas my white stick it's a Comet GP6, and I think it's about £200 to buy. There are cheaper out there, yeah, but you get what you pay for, But genuinely, ham band antennas are a bit more pricier than CB. And some of the radios, I mean, this is just a car mobile radio it's a 12-volt one with a socket that I've got plugged into a 12-volt power supply that I use for my home base. And this was what, £80, I think. Yeah, £80 I think I paid for this. But you can pay £2,000 plus for a licensed radio transceiver. Again, you get what you pay for, but the price is definitely out there, But yeah. Also, next negative for me is with your license, you are required to carry out things like assessments for EMF, electromagnetic interference, basically, to make sure you have to carry out assessments and print out your assessment to make sure you're not interfering with neighbours who, every time you send out a signal, you're blocking their TV from working, and general safety for the radio waves that travel through the air. You have to make sure you're a set distance away from it and blah blah blah, and you have to carry out that assessment. That's part of your license. You have to do that. So if Ofcom, the license people, ever require me to provide proof, I have to provide it to them. But CB, you generally find is less strict or monitored. Again, that's a bit of a loose term, but that's generally what's thrown around, Also, again, another negative to ham is you have to say your freaking call sign all the time, before and at the end, blah blah blah. Yeah. So that's my positive and negative for CB and ham. Now, whichever one you find is best for you is obviously your choice entirely, Personally, my favourite band, or my favourite of them, is actually neither CB or ham. My favourite is actually PMR 446. And there's just I don't know, something about it. It's a small antenna, it's a small radio. By law, you can only output 0.5 watts, half a watt. So again, your range can be severely limited. But there's ways around it. You can go high up, blah blah blah, and things like that. I quite like that. Seeing what distance I can get on such limited power. I really really like that. And again, this is license free. I picked these two radios up for £15, brand new. So again, PMR is cheap to get into because it's license free. But even though PMR is my favourite, out of the two, if I had to choose between CB and ham, I would say I prefer CB. Strange, I know. I spent all that time and a little bit of money to get my licence, and I do actually prefer CB. I don't know, it's just what I kind of got into first, and that kind of pushed me further into the hobby. So yeah, that's my opinions, my my chatter, and but I am interested to see what's your favourite and why. Let me know in the comments. 7 threes.